Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Mukham karoti vachanam bangam langyate girim yat kripatamaham vande Shri Guru Dinataranam Paramanandam Madhavam. Okay, so let me share the screen. Quick recap. So we are in the second section of the Bhagavad Gita, chapters 7 and 12. So by this time, you probably have memorized all the chapter titles of the middle section. So K, knowledge of the absolute. A is attaining the supreme. M is the most confidential knowledge. O is the opulence of the absolute. U is the universal form. And then we are doing the last chapter in the second section, which is devotional service. This is this is the shortest chapter, only 20 verses, and one of the most potent chapter. It's a big favorite of devotees. There are some devotees I know that recite the 12th chapter every day because it's full of so many nice instructions from Krishna. So what were some of the things that we learned for the 11th chapter? So we were looking at, we divided the 11th chapter into 3 sections. So we had said, given the mnemonic RUP, which was request, where Arjun requests to see the universal form. Krishna then shows. And then P is for the prayers that Arjun does after seeing the universal form. So then why does Arjun request to see the universal form? So we had given 3 reasons. He was inquisitive as a devotee to know more about his worshipable Lord. He wanted to establish without any doubt that Krishna is God. And also he wanted to establish future standards. That if somebody comes claiming to be God, they should be able to show their Vishwarupa. And then what are the 2 aspects of the universal form that Krishna showed? So one was the Vishwarupa, which was his form spread all over space. So we had the description of all the planets, the planetary systems, all the demigods, everybody was there within the Vishwarupa. And then Kalrupa, which was his form of time, Kalvasmi, where he saw so many warriors being killed, so many great personalities reaching their destruction. So the 2 aspects of space and time. And what was Arjun's reaction when he saw the universal form? So he was terrified. So when he saw the Vishwarup, he was struck with awe and wonder. So sitting in one place, he was able to see the entirety of the universe while sitting in a chariot in front of Krishna. And then he saw things that he had never ever witnessed before. Great planetary systems, great stellar bodies, great personalities. And then he saw Krishna's time form. And he saw that how everything was being continuously and systematically being destroyed by Krishna. And that feeling of wonderment turned into fear. And then he asked Krishna to take away the universal form. And this was basically because, as a devotee, Arjun, while he was inquisitive about it, he was not attracted to any form of Krishna other than the personal form. So, nature of bhakti is that it is on a platform of relationship, and relationship is between two people. So you can't have a relationship with the universal form. You can't have a relationship with energy. You may appreciate it, you may admire it, be scared of it, but you definitely can't have a loving relationship. And as a devotee, Arjun was used to having a friendly, loving relationship with Krishna. So even for the short time that he saw it, he lost all interest in it. And then he actually requests Krishna to take it. And then one of the statements that Krishna makes in this is for Arjun to become my instrument. And really speaking, this is one of the key takeaways, at least for devotees, that perfection in life is understanding and acting as per the desires of Krishna. So perfection in life is not being lethargic, not being completely fatalistic, but actively inquiring, what does Krishna want me to do? And how does Krishna speak to us? He speaks to us through the scriptures, speaks to us through his representatives, speaks to us through other devotees. And then when we act as per that, we act with all our energy. But then we are just an instrument, because ultimately we are doing what Krishna wants us to do. We do the best, but we do what Krishna wants us to do. That's actually the foundation of the platform of bhakti. So, summarization of the 6th chapter: Arjuna asks Krishna to show the universal form. Krishna agrees. He grants him Divya Chakshu. Then Arjuna sees the Vishwarupa, the planets and personalities. He sees Krishna as time. Then he requests Krishna to withdraw this ghastly form and resume the vision of the loving two-armed form. And Krishna thus provides various ways for us to understand his greatness and to surrender unto him. So Arjuna, as a devotee, was not very much interested, but there are people who have that propensity, that they would like to submit to something that is awe-inspiring. Their attraction goes in that direction. And Krishna gives, for different living entities, he gives different avenues to make advancements. So we have the verse. Do we have any volunteers for the verse? Okay. Thank you, Akshay Prabhu. Please go ahead.
Mat karma krin mat paramo mat bhakta sangha
Varjita.
Nirvaya sarvabhuteshu yaha samam eti madhava.
Very good. Translation?
So, my dear Arjuna, he who works for me, he who knows me as the Supreme, he who renders loving devotional service unto me, free from all contamination, from fruitive work and mental speculation, and is a friend to everyone, he certainly comes to me.
Thank you. Very good. So this is the last verse in the 11th chapter. And as you can see, that this verse establishes the basis of bhakti. Mat karma kar, mat parmo. That you work for me, mat parmo, you consider me to be the greatest. Mat bhakta sang varjita, become my devotee. Avoid sang varjita, avoid contaminating associations. And nirvaya sarva bhuteshu. That be friendly to everybody. And in this way, yasa mameti pandava. In this way, you will certainly come to me.
Kajal also had the verse memorized, I think.
Who?
Kajal.
Okay. Maybe next week. Okay, so we will now start with our 12th chapter. So, like I said, it's a very short chapter. The message, yeah, Haribol? Okay, so it's a very short chapter. The message is very crisp, and it's a chapter that sets the Bhagavad Gita in perspective. So, very, very important chapter. In a way, Bhagavad Gita ends at the 12th chapter. So everything that Krishna had to speak, he speaks by the end of the 12th chapter. Remaining 6 chapters are details. So if you look at it this way, till the 12th chapter, Krishna is preaching to Arjuna and to us that what is the best way to get out of the material world and return to spiritual world. And the highest process of bhakti is summarized in the 12th chapter. From the 13th chapter onwards, Krishna starts speaking about those who, for whatever reason, are still interested in the material. So he gives details. So the last 6 sections are very interesting because they speak about things that we are very familiar with. They will speak about our nature, our propensities. They will speak about piety, sinful activities, people who follow religion, people who don't follow religion. So they will speak about things that we can relate to. But the message that Krishna wants to give us, that so Prabhupada would say that you're in a prison house and you want to get out of the prison house. So you're primarily interested in the tunnel that is there or the procedure that is there to exit the prison house. But then there is some prisoner who says that, not sure how long I'll take to get out of the prison. Let me find out more about the prison house. You tell me about these bars over here. Tell me about this window over here. Or it's also for those persons who, understanding the nature of what is holding them back, can roll it back also. So once you understand what is binding you, you can unbind yourself. So we'll of course discuss that in the last 6 chapters. In this, the focus is on Shuddha Bhakti or pure devotional service. So the conversation so far is that at the end of the 6th chapter, Krishna, having spoken about Astanga Yoga, he glorifies the yogi who thinks of him in Samadhi. And the 7th chapter onwards starts with the Bhakti section. And there Krishna gives information about himself. That how can he be seen? Who is he? the process of getting that information through hearing with faith and practice. So it was basically knowing Krishna and not knowing Krishna, two parts of that chapter. Then Krishna speaks about, and now that you know me, how can you attain? And this is when Krishna says that whatever consciousness you have at the time of death, your next life will be based on that. So if at the time of death your mind is fixed on Krishna, you will not take birth again. And the process is described in the 9th chapter, which is the most confidential knowledge. Krishna now talks about how can one develop this consciousness. How can be in that mode that at the time of death, one's mind naturally goes to Krishna. And Krishna introduces the topic of bhakti as the easy but potent way. So he begins with Achinta Bheda Bhed Tattva to talk about how he is simultaneously one and different. Then he talks about, in the Chaturshloki, he gives the knowledge about how he is the source of everything, and his devotees, knowing that, worship him. And for the devotees who worship him sincerely, from within he gives them the knowledge and the understanding to come. And then he gives many assurances that little bit of advancement will take you a long way, that I will preserve what you have and carry what you lack. And even if you commit the most sinful activities, you're still protected. My devotees will never vanquish. So Krishna is speaking in a very, very fond tone about this process of bhakti. In the 10th chapter, then, Krishna speaks about how he can be seen in the material world. So after having explained the highest process, he takes a step back. And he says that perhaps everybody cannot follow devotion. But then there is this process that if you just develop that consciousness that I'm the source of everything. I'm sorry, I made a mistake. The Chaturshloki actually comes in the 10th chapter. By mistake, I said 9th chapter. But that discussion about knowing Krishna, and after knowing, praying for him, and then Krishna giving the understanding, it's part of the 10th chapter. And then Krishna speaks about so many of his opulences, that how he is the best of everything, or is the essence of everything. And this is just for us to become Krishna conscious. When we see a great personality, then we understand that greatness is a reflection of the opulence of Krishna. That this person is so great, one can imagine how great Krishna can be. Or this person is so strong, or this person is so powerful. So many opulences of Krishna, more than 86 opulences he describes, and different ways for us to make this point, that we can appreciate Krishna around us. And then in the last chapter, he spoke about how everything is within him. In the 10th chapter, he spoke that how he's within everything. Now he says how everything is within me. So in the Vishwarupa, we saw that how everything is contained with him. In the Kal Rupa, all the actions, they're all functions of time, past, present, future, death, everything is there. And it ends with Krishna showing Arjuna his original two-armed form. So this is the connection, that in the end, towards the end of the 11th chapter, Krishna says that, my dear Arjuna, what is the need for you to know all these opulences? That with a small fragment of myself, I pervade the entire universe. And if you remember, that was the inquisitiveness that because of which Arjun asked Krishna to show the universal form. So then Krishna shows the universal form, and then towards the end of the 11th chapter, then he 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 glorifies the process even higher than that, which is the mat karma karan mat parmo mat bhakta sangavarchita, that the one who works for me makes me the supreme goal. That person is the best. In the 12th chapter, Krishna does not wait for Arjun to ask a question, because bhakti is so dear to him that now that he has started talking about it, he continues. It's like we have all had experience in talking to persons, that when they're talking about a subject they're neutral to, they respond to questions. But when they're talking about something that excites them, inspires them, they don't need a lot of incentive. They will enthusiastically talk about it. And we see that in the 12th chapter. Krishna does not wait for Arjun to talk. He starts explaining Shuddha Bhakti. So this chapter is divided into 3 sections. And the earlier part of the section, so small correction, Arjun does ask a question. He asks the question that what is better? Because Krishna concluded the 11th chapter talking about the superiority of bhakti, but in the 11th chapter he had basically essentially shown his impersonal form. So Arjun wants to know which is better. But we'll see that Krishna, he speaks right through the 12th chapter. He's so excited about this topic, and he speaks about the progressive stages of bhakti, so which is in a way summarizing all that he has spoken so far. So in the previous 12 chapters, Krishna has present karma, gyan, astang, bhakti, personal form, impersonal form. And at this point, even though Arjun doesn't explicitly phrase the question that way, but at this point, one may be asking that how do all these things relate to one another? So even if I accept that bhakti is the best, but there must be a reason for which you have given all these other options, because Krishna does not do anything without a reason. So Krishna organizes this into the famous yoga ladder. And understanding the yoga ladder is understanding the Bhagavad Gita. Because so far we have been going one step at a time, karma, sakam karma, nishkam karma, ashtanga yoga. Now we are going to be looking backwards along with Krishna. That I've explained all this to you, and this is how everything fits together. And then the concluding part of this chapter, Krishna talks about what are the qualities that endear one to Krishna. So after having talked about his fondness to devotees, he talks about the qualities that make a person a devotee. Because it's again, Arjun is a practical person. That show me how. What is it that a person can do? How can philosophy come into action? Okay, so the mnemonic is BPQ: Bhakti, progressive stages of bhakti, and the qualities that endear one to Krishna. So, so as you recollect that towards the end of the previous chapter, Arjuna had seen Krishna's universal form both ways, Vishwarup, Kalrup, and then he requests for Krishna to show his personal form, and Krishna obliges. So now the Arjun asks this this a question that which are considered to be more perfect? Those who are properly engaged in your devotional service, or those who worship the impersonal Brahman, the unmanifested? And the reason Arjun asks is because in the 10th and the 11th chapter, the focus is on the impersonal part of Krishna. When he's talking about his opulences, he's talking about his shaktis, his potencies. In the 11th form, he's talking about that energy by which he sustains, creates, and destroys everything. But Krishna is not there. There is no rasa. You cannot fall in love with the universal form. You can be in awe and reverence to it. You can meditate on the opulences and get a sense of the greatness of Krishna, but your heart will not grow warm. You will not develop that longing. You will develop respect and wonderment. And because Arjun, he himself is a devotee, he wants to get an understanding of his own position. So he had seen the universal form, and then he had said that I don't want to see it. But then he's thinking that, what have I done an offense? Am I a fallen devotee? That Krishna showed me his universal form, and before showing it, Krishna had said that very few people have seen this form. It's difficult to see. But because I was not attracted to it, I asked Krishna to withdraw it. And when I saw Krishna's two-armed form, then I was happy. So he is asking both for our benefit and for his own benefit, that which is better, bhakti, or those who worship the impersonal Brahman, the unmanifested. And of course, by now we know what the answer is. So Krishna says that those who fix their minds on my personal form and are always engaged in worshipping me with great and transcendental faith are considered by me to be most perfect. The superlative. So this is Krishna's verdict. And despite such specific statements that Krishna makes, it's still surprising that people do read the Bhagavad Gita and come to different conclusions. That, well, actually Krishna said this, but maybe he didn't really mean that. Look at this other verse. So here Krishna is unequivocally making this statement that my devotees are most dear to me. Those who follow the process of bhakti are most perfect. And the interesting thing is that Krishna is not talking about perfection in this verse. Right? He's talking about people who are engaged in the process. So that itself is enough to make Krishna happy. So the implicit question is, because Arjuna had asked a two-part question, that which is better? He said yes. Now the implicit question is, what about those who worship the impersonal Brahman? And Krishna says that for those whose minds are attached to the unmanifested impersonal feature of the Supreme, advancement is very troublesome. To make progress in that discipline is always difficult for those who are embodied. So it is a difficult path. It is a risky path. The chances of failures are very high. And even if somebody somehow reaches the goal, Krishna has said that it is not the highest goal. The highest goal is bhakti. So right at the beginning of the chapter, he 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 gives the conclusion. So this is the first part of the chapter. What is superior, bhakti or impersonalism? So let me pause here and see if we have any comments or realizations.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Not a question, Prabhu, just a comment. The way you said Krishna got excited and then he spoke for the whole of the chapter really sounded very nice. And it makes us believe that Krishna is also a person. He's looking for reciprocation, for pure devotees. And once he gets them, he does get excited. So that kind of struck with me.
And we see the same mood in chapter 9 also, where Krishna is like on a go. He's on, what's the word that they say? That he's on a roll. Chapter 9 is also speaking about pure devotional service. It's most confidential knowledge, but essentially it's bhakti. And we see the same thing over there. Thank you, Prabhu. Akshay Prabhu, you had something to share?
Nothing, Prabhu. Sorry, it was from.
Okay, no worries. Ravi Prabhu, you have something to share?
Prabhuji, this chapter I don't have question, but the last chapter I have one small question, Prabhuji. Can I ask?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhuji. And Prabhuji, because Arjun being a devotee, he already has the highest perfection, and he could really see Krishna in his personal form, not like Duryodhana and all. So for him, is Divya Chakshu giving to see something inferior? How should we understand, Prabhuji?
So Prabhu, Srila Prabhupada had some thoughts about this. And Bhurijan Prabhu also comments that maybe one analogy can explain this, that so let's assume like a child is very used to seeing the father at home, and the father is like a big general, and he wears this uniform and all that, and for the son to appreciate that different form, he needs to change his vision. Now in this case, of course, he doesn't need like a Divya Chakshu, but he needs to change his vision, that this is not my father, this is the general of the army with all this uniform sitting there. So Prabhupada explains that the Divya Chakshu were in a way for degrading the vision of Arjun. That Arjun was so used to seeing the personal form, he was so attached to the personal form, which is the highest form. He had no interest or attraction in the form which is considered to be lower, but yeah, he was interested in it. So when Krishna says, "Now I award you the divine vision," it was in the closest explanation Prabhupada gives is that you can consider that he was degrading his vision to see something that he is not really very interested in or inspired to see.
Yes, Prabhuji, very clear, Prabhuji. The example is also very clear, and you are very right. The mood in which we see also we need to change to see certain characteristics.
Right.
Yeah. And coming to this chapter, Prabhuji, like our Rajneesh Prabhu is saying, like it is very encouraging for us, and I think it will help us to read more to increase our conviction. This chapter. Thank you.
It will. I agree. Kajal Prabhu, any thoughts?
Hari Bol Prabhu, I had one question. So the Vishwaroop of Lord Krishna, is that a personal form or impersonal form?
So the Vishwaroop is it's a special form which is which comes in the category of impersonal form. So even though when it is described, there is some sense of personification of the form, that I see planets and I see people. So there is some sense of personification. So the form is that, but it's not that. So if somebody would say that, describe the Vishwaroop, you cannot really describe the Vishwaroop. You can only say that within the Vishwaroop is contained the planets, within the Vishwaroop is contained the mountains, or or the people. So that is why it is considered to be in the category of an impersonal.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Okay. Thank you for the questions. So we'll move to the next section. And thanks to Shivani, Srivani, actually, thanks to Shivani, now I know how to hide the panels, or at least I thought I did. Oh, for some reason it's not working. Okay. So now the second section is the yoga ladder. So I gave a little bit of a introduction, that this is essentially Krishna summarizing at a high level. So you can see there are just 6 verses at a 5 verses, sorry, at a very high level. How does everything that he has spoken relate to one another? How do they fit in the bigger picture? And of course, the notion of ladder means that there is a hierarchy. So lowest level on the ladder is Karmakand. So Karmakand is performing pious activities as per your Varnashram dharma. But the person has material desires. So the person desires to enjoy, the person desires to engage the senses. But in doing so, he does not do it whimsically. He does it as per the injunctions in the scriptures. He follows the do's, avoids the don'ts, and in this way, he enjoys. Now, below this, of course, is what is called vikarma, which Krishna doesn't talk about here because it basically means you've fallen off the ladder, which is being sinful, that performing activities that are contrary to the scriptural injunctions. So the ladder essentially starts from pious enjoyment. And pious enjoyment, karmakand, leads to nishkam karma. That pious enjoyment is sakam karma, that you're enjoying but with desires. And as you learn more and more to subject yourself to rules and regulations, then the detachment from the work or the results of the work begins to manifest. So that is nishkam karma. It's an intermediate stage between karmakand and jnanakand. And then the nishkam karma then leads to jnanakand, which is atmagyan, knowledge of the soul. So the realization that aham brahmasmi, I am not the body, but I am the soul. So this is the next stage. And based on this, then we did the 6th chapter, Astanga Yoga, where the person, understanding that I am the soul, now begins to inquire about the super soul. Then am I just a soul hanging out by itself? Or is there somebody that is over and above me? That is Paramatma. How, as a soul, do I relate with other souls? How do I relate with the Supreme Soul? So the next stage in the yoga ladder, Krishna says, is Astanga Yoga. Okay, something happened. Is everybody still there?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, thank you. Something happened to my screen. Then so now until this stage, in Karm Kand and Gyan Kand, Krishna is not directly present. The focus is mostly on the self and understanding what may have been. Something is going on. Just give me a minute. The problem with having a work computer is that they keep pushing stuff at all times. I'm not sure why. Okay. I'm hoping it resolves itself. In Astanga Yoga, the focus has turned to Paramatma, but more in a mode of neutrality there. But there is some deference to the Paramatma, but that's about it. Are you seeing all these pop-ups that are coming on my screen, or they're just for me?
No, Prabhuji, we don't see anything.
Okay, because my whole screen is now covered with pop-ups. I'm speaking, I can't see the slide. Let's see if I can move these things.
We could see the slide, Prabhuji. Until Karma Yoga, you highlighted.
Okay. So now in Karma Yoga, the focus is now turned towards Krishna. So one can understand Karma Yoga as the same as Karma Kand. The only difference is that now Krishna is at the center. So in Karma Yoga, the person is sakam. So he has desires to enjoy. He has desires to engage his senses. But whatever he does it as an offering to Krishna. So example, and of course, Karma Yoga is a spectrum. So example is that I work, and because I'm working, I get some money, and the money is for my enjoyment, and I take a part of that money and give it to the temple, or I give it to the service of the devotees. So let's assume I was making $100. I give $10 to the temple. So that work of mine that accounted for that growth of, or for that portion of $10, I'm essentially working for Krishna. If you take it to the other extreme, that suppose initially during Prabhupada's early days, There were people who were working. Satsaru Maharaj, he was working in the ports of New York. His salary was $650, and um, um, every 2 weeks, whatever salary he would get, he would come and give it to Prabhupada. And at that time, he was the only working member in ISKCON. There was nobody else working. Everybody would come, eat prasadam, and go. He was the person who was literally supporting. So at one point he came and he says that, we came to Prabhupada and he said, I don't want to, I'm working in a very demonic environment. It's the New York ports, the people there are foul-mouthed. I see so much of corruption going on. And I want to live in the temple and become a devotee. And then Prabhupada said, what are you talking about? You're already practicing karma yoga. That yad karoshi yadasnashi yad joshi dadashi. That whatever you're doing it as an offering for Krishna. Now, in his case, of course, he was at the other end of the spectrum, where he was fully dedicated to Krishna. But Karma Yoga is a spectrum. But the important thing is that Krishna consciousness has begun. That people, they are aware of the relationship with Krishna. They are aware of the fact that it's the duty to serve Krishna and his devotees. So that is why you see that the word yoga is used over here, because yoga means connecting to the Supreme. So this is the next stage in our yoga ladder. Next stage to Karma Yoga is Sadhana Bhakti. So in Sadhana Bhakti, the person is purposefully performing activities to please Krishna. In Karma Yoga, the person performs activities to please himself, but he surrenders either part or complete activities to Krishna, but he's the focus. Sadhana Bhakti, the mode is that what you ask me to do, Krishna, I will do that. Chanting, deity worship, study of the scriptures, Vaishnav Seva. But because that spontaneous love is not manifested, this is done externally. So sadhana means practice. Sadhana Bhakti means the devotee in practice. It's like when you go out of college and you get your first job, then you get this title of a trainee engineer or a management trainee. So for all purpose, you're an engineer or a manager, but because you're new, you don't know everything, you're going through the training phase. Sadhana Bhakti is like that. Because the person does not know how to spontaneously interact with Krishna, the person is following external rules and regulations. But what is the impetus to follow these rules and regulations? The impetus is the person wants to develop a spontaneous relationship with Krishna. So sadhana bhakti does not have any returns in terms of if you chant, you will get riches or you will get opulences. The returns that sadhana bhakti gives you is that more bhakti. Like they say in chanting, if you chant good rounds, you will get to chant more rounds. Or for service, like they say, if you do good service, you will get opportunities for more service. So the motive is pure. The execution may be flawed because of the transitory consciousness, but the motive is pure. And the highest stage, of course, is Shuddha Bhakti, where one is spontaneously situated in the platform of pure loving interaction with Krishna. So depending on, now, since this is presented as a ladder, it also means that the person has the opportunity to jump off at any stage. Now, this ladder is important to understand that the different destinations, they are not different processes, but they're basically different jump off points on the same process. So a person who's moving on the path of bhakti, and for whatever reason stagnates at Karma Kanda, what is his destination? That he will go to heavenly planets, where he can enjoy heavenly delights. What about Gyan Kand? What if a person he takes the exit ramp? Rampal Maharaj gives the example. You're going on the driveway, on the highway from point A to point B. And if you keep driving straight, you will reach the destination. But then there are exit ramps. So different exit ramps take you, like you go on some highway and they say that this is a scenic point. You can take the exit over there. Or they'll say that food available on this exit, you can take that exit. So these are the different exit ramps. Somebody exits on Karma Kand, then they reach heavenly planets. Somebody exits on Gyan Kand, they reach the Brahman, impersonal realization. So this is what is also known as, that's why this is also known as the Brahma Gyan, because you get the knowledge of the impersonal aspect of Krishna. If somebody exits at Astang, then Paramatma realization. If somebody now, after this point, after these first three steps, you are, so to speak, there are no more exit ramps after that. You have crossed the point of no return. And all these stages will lead you to Krishna. Why? Because from the stage of Karma Yoga, you have invited Krishna in your life. Krishna is a very tenacious guest. That once he comes to your house, he's not going to leave your house. You may give him different hints, subtle or more obvious, but Krishna stays. So once a person has entered the stage of Karma Yoga, it's a matter of time before they start practicing Sadhana Vaidhi Bhakti. Once a person is practicing Sadhana Vaidhi Bhakti, it's a matter of time before they reach the stage of pure devotional service. Now, how much that time is, that depends on the practitioner. In the Bhagavatam, it is said that this could be one lava, it could be one moment, or it could be millions of lifetimes. So a person may practice Karma Yoga for lifetime after lifetime, then start practicing Sadhana Vaidhi Bhakti, lifetimes after lifetimes, and then reach the stage of Shuddha Bhakti. Or the person may do the whole thing in one lifetime, or in a very short time. So this is essentially a summation of the yoga ladder process explained by Krishna. So also important to now compare the yoga ladder with Prabhupada would call the bhakti elevator. So in the yoga ladder that we showed previously, there are these stages that we talked about: Karma Kand, Nishkam Karma, Brahma Gyan, Atma, Astanga Yoga, and then Karma Yoga, Sadhana Bhakti, then Shuddha Bhakti. And in the bhakti process, you start off directly with Sadhana Bhakti. So you don't have to go through the initial stages. So even if you're at the stage of vikarma, even if you're a sinful person, not following the scriptures, but if you get the mercy of a devotee, Vaishnava Kripa, then by the force of that mercy, one can directly take to Samna Bhakti. So one path is that of gradual elevation, rung by rung. One lifetime, Karma Kand. 20 lifetimes, Nishkam Karma. 400 lifetimes, Brahma Jnana. And so on. Gradually, one person moves up. And then there is, as I mentioned, there is always the possibility of the person taking the off ramp. That the person might get attracted to the heavenly planets, and Karma Kand, Nishkam Karma, they may go there. The person may get attracted to the impersonal Brahma. At the Brahma Gyan stage, person may exit to Brahman realization. At the Astang Yoga, person may get attracted to mystic siddhis. All the siddhis that the Ashta siddhis they have, of becoming lighter than the lightest, becoming invisible, reading other people's mind, controlling other people's mind. The people get attracted to that and they get deviated, or they may get attracted to Paramatma form and exit there with Paramatma realization. Or they can make progress to Samnabha. Now this is the same stage in our bhakti elevator. That is essentially the beginning stage. And once the person is in this stage, then the progress is guaranteed, and the progress is rapid. Which is why Srila Prabhupada, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Krishna himself, they constantly remind us and urge. And the beauty of the bhakti process is that Krishna is there to pull us up. So Prabhupada used this analogy of the elevator very appropriately, that when you're going up the ladder, then all the effort is yours. That you are basically climbing up the ladder. You put a misstep, you fall down. In the elevator, there is some other force pulling up the elevator. All you have to do is to stay within the elevator. And you will definitely reach the top floor. Because Krishna is there actively helping. So one of the questions that comes here is that if bhakti is so potent, it's so easy and so dear to Krishna, then why does he even talk about alternative paths? Why doesn't he simply say in Bhagavad Gita, just speak the 9th chapter, just speak the 12th chapter, a few verses from the other chapters. So it becomes a small Gita, maybe 9 or 10 verses, and no confusion. The reason that Krishna speaks about so many paths is because there are so many of us. And each one of us has different personal propensities. So one might say that it makes so much sense to practice devotional service. But not everybody will be able to engage in that. And empirically, we can verify this. That there's a very small percentage of people who practice bhakti. What do the majority of the people practice? Some form of karma kand. In this current age, even being truly pious is very difficult, but that's what they try. They try to do some form of karma kand because their drive to enjoy their senses is so strong. And even the paths that are distant from Krishna, like karma kand, is the most distant, but it's still there. So that at least one is on that highway. One is heading in the right direction. maybe going slowly, but at least one is engaged in moving towards the path of bhakti. And then, of course, the longer the path is, the greater is the chance of a detour and fall down. So we had discussed this. And the path of bhakti is the fastest, safest, and the most enjoyable. Not much traffic, not many people going there. The people who are going there, they're more interested in your success than their own success. In all other paths, there is competition. Radha Govind Maharaj says that when people start practicing karmakand, the demigods get very upset at them, because they know that the perfection of karmakand is that this person will go to the heavenly planets. And they definitely don't want people in the heavenly planets. So they put all kinds of obstacles in their path, because there is this competition, this sense of that, and of course, even though the resources in the heavenly kingdom are almost unlimited, but still there's this sense that this is for me. You stay out. In the process of bhakti, everybody is trying to help everybody. That your success is my success, our success. So there is no competition. It's a very enjoyable part. For those who follow impersonal Brahman, they work so hard to destroy all relationships that they will either because of their practices or because of their propensity, they work very, very hard to destroy relationships, because in their mind, the relationships is what is holding them into this personal form. Once this ropes of relationships are dissolved, they can give up the personal form and just merge into the absolute. But then can you imagine what kind of a life it is, where you're destroying all the relationships, all the opportunities to have fun, to laugh, to humor one another? What is left? Nothing. Shunya. Nothing is. And because so there is a reason that this path is so potent, so enjoyable, because it is dearest to Krishna. And that's why you will see his helping hand. So not only the devotees, but Krishna is also helping. He does not help one in Karmakand. Karmakand, he is just like a merchant. That you give me $10, I will give you $10 worth of stuff. I won't give you 1 cent more. That's what Karmakand is. Exactly to the level of piety that you earned, you enjoy benefits. Not little bit more, not little bit less. Bhakti, Krishna openly, he says that I'm partial to my devotees. That I'm forgiving them all. Even if they do abominable action, I'm forgiving them. And then he says, how partial I am, that from within I'm giving them the knowledge and realizations. That I'm actually doing what they're supposed to do actively from within. So this is the second section, which is the process of bhakti or the yoga ladder. So I'll pause here and see if there is if there's any discussion. So I'm not sure if Akshay Prabhu, this is your previous hand raised or this is a new hand raised. Okay.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear two of you.
Hold on. I'm sorry. Haribol.
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, sorry, Prabhuji. Having some technical issues.
No
So,
worries.
Prabhuji, you had mentioned that in other paths other than bhakti, there's competition, and demigods don't. If I heard it correctly, the demigods are posing difficulties in order to someone who is trying to go through the other paths. But I've also heard that in bhakti also, when one is trying to work on the instructions given by his seniors, that the demigods pose some difficulties just to test the person. So how is that different from like in both the paths, then, Prabhuji?
I have personally not heard that, Prabhu. Ma'am, do you want to share the source that where did you hear this from?
Sure, Prabhu. So I think I've heard it in it must have been for a few lectures. It said that when devotee is trying to progress on the path, then either Durga Ma or some other demigods, they come and they pose some challenges. Maya Devi in particular, and then it's actually a stepping stone, just to test how the candidate is doing.
Okay, I understand your question now. So when so different kinds of difficulties for those who are on the process of karmkand, the obstacles that are put are real obstacles that can impede the progress. Like a person is performing austerities, Indra sends an apsara. Like Indra is scared this person will take my position, and the apsara bewilders the person. That's the end. Because that person's progress is stopped there. For when one is practicing bhakti, such a person is very dear to the demigods. They will never put obstacles. In fact, Vishnu Chakravarti says that when a person reaches the state of Brahmagyan, from that point onwards, the demigods become friendly to the person. They do not view them in a negative way. Now, the point that you're saying is that Maya Devi tests devotees. Maya Devi is testing devotees not in her position as a demigod, but in her position as a servant of Krishna. So it's not Maya Devi who's testing, it's Krishna who's testing. And when Krishna tests his devotees, he tests them in a way that they become stronger and better. So one of the statements that is made in regard to this is that Krishna never puts his devotees to a test that he will not pass. Then why does he put him to the test? Because by putting him through the test, the devotee is glorified and the realizations of the devotee is sharpened. And since we are in Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is a classic case of that. Pure devotee of Krishna, Krishna puts him to a test. And Arjuna passes with flying colors. 5,000 years later on, we are still meditating on the words and the questions of Arjuna. How did he get this glory? Well, Krishna put him through the test and he passed. So as a representative of Krishna, Maya Devi, Durga Devi is a dear devotee of Krishna. He puts those tests for devotees so that their realizations get sharpened, and not importantly, but also it inspires others. Arjun became famous because of this. Even when we discuss amongst one another, we talk about Bhakti Tirth Maharaj, we talk about Srila Prabhupada. He went through so much bad health, right? And uh, uh, somebody would ask that pure devotee of Krishna, so much suffering he's going through. What was the result of that? That the glories of Prabhupada became even brighter. There are videos of Prabhupada that he's lying on his bed about to give up his body. And what is he doing? He's translating the Bhagavatam. He's reciting, he's speaking into the phone. That's how dedicated he is to the service of Krishna. Does that help you, Prabhu? Did I understand your question?
Yes, very much, Prabhuji. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. That's very helpful.
Okay. Thank you. Ravi Prabhu?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Prabhuji, you mentioned that like impersonalists, they tend to cut all the relations and they try to negate everything. But sometimes we see, Prabhuji, like those impersonalists only generally will be in social service activities or some welfare activities, or maybe because they are in mode of goodness. So are they really a true impersonalists, Prabhuji, or they're just Mayavadis, or because they tend to do more such kind of activities than us?
I would disagree with that statement. I would agree with the first part of the statement, but I would disagree that they do more welfare activities than us. To make that statement, I guess you would have to define what does welfare mean.
I got my mistake, Prabhuji. Yeah, I realized where I made my mistake. I am very sorry, Prabhuji. But maybe first part, if you can clarify, because second part, I'm clear that our Vaishnavas do Paradukka Dukhi and they try to help, even materially also.
So, thank you, Prabhu. So, firstly, in the current day and age, you will very rarely come across a full-blown impersonalist, right? Just because for the same reason you won't come across a Karmkandi. Most of the people are shades of Karmkand and Vikarma. But when the impersonalists are making the way towards this whole step, so the yoga ladder walks them through Karmkand. From Karmkand to Nishkam, from Nishkam, then they go to Brahmagyan. So yes, you will see them at a certain stage in their path, they will be performing welfare activities. Because what does welfare activity mean? What it means is that you're turning the focus away from yourself to others. That I have so much of time that I can use to enjoy myself, but I would rather use it to help others. So the focus is, at least your absorption with your self is being mitigated. But when they reach the stages of Brahmagyan, the more mature stages of Brahmagyan, then what is the mantra? What is the mantra of the impersonalists? It is neti, neti, neti. Not this, not this, not this. I'm not the body. I have no relationships. I'm not connected to anything. And that's the only way that they philosophically accept that they can break free. So when they reach the mature stage of the Brahmagyan, they very willfully they break off all these relationships. The Brahmagyan style sannyas stage, you see, it's a very, very strict stage. Completely break off all relationships. Don't talk to anybody. So they kind of create this vacuum of a relationship, because that's what they're aspiring to be, in the vacuum of the Brahman. And that's why they ultimately fall, because it does not satisfy them. Is that okay, Ravi Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji. In fact, devotee, he more matures, he does more service, but Brahmavadis, they are opposite.
They are, yeah.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Okay. If not, then we will. Okay.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. A very quick question, Prabhu. Prabhuji, is demigod worship one of the step towards reaching Krishna, or that step should not be taken?
So the answer to both your questions is yes. That for those who are following the gradual process, the yoga ladder process, then it is one of the steps to Krishna consciousness. And for those who have already had the good fortune of reaching the stage of bhakti, if they're practicing devotional service because of Vaishnava Kripa, then they should not take to it. So contextually, the answer to both the questions is yes. Does that explain, or did I confuse you a little bit more, Prabhu?
No, actually, you're right, Prabhu. Your answer is clear, because I was reading this chapter in Bhagavatam, and there also it says that um, you can worship demigods, and it's mentioned in Vedas. It's perfectly okay, right? And then, of course, there is a superior alternate path that you just mentioned, right? Um, so I was just thinking that once you get ingrained with something, once you taste something, my feeling is we will stick with it unless some miracle happens, some Krishna's mercy happens, because it's difficult to change your faith and belief in short duration. So that's why I was not able to uh, clarify to myself how can this be a step in the journey to reach Krishna. It seems more like a problem.
It is. It is. So your realizations are completely on the mark. It's difficult to change one's practice. Now, of course, they are there because they are um, they have the ability to purify and gradually allow the person to move, but it is very slow and very difficult. So that's why, yes, it is a path. If it was not, then it would not be there in the Vedas. The whole purpose of the Vedas is to guide one person to Krishna. Everything in the Vedas is for that path. So yes, it is a path, because it provides that access to do. And it does have the problem that people get addicted to it. They get addicted to piety. They get addicted to material sense enjoyments, and they languish over there. Which is why then Krishna starts speaking strongly about such Vimam Vivashvati Yogam. No, what's that verse in the second chapter? Imam Pushpate Vacham, Prabhadante Eva Paschita, Vedavadrata Partha. And he starts saying that don't become a Vedvadi, just following Karam Kand. Because then he becomes impatient. That I've given you this, you purify yourself and move to the next stage. But then he sees people lifetime after lifetime just staying there, and he starts becoming impatient. So, and for the same reason, if someone is fortunate to have access to bhakti, then for that person, yes, the answer is yes, they should not take to the worship of the demigod, because it's like you're on the fifth step of the ladder and then you're jumping down to the first step, and which is a sticky step. So best for you is to be happy that somehow you have reached the fifth step and look upwards from there.
Thank you. Thank you, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, the ladder that you had shown in your slide, which leads to heaven, was it the same thing that somebody in the Karam Kand who reaches heaven is actually a demigod worshipper?
Yes, that's the same thing. The ladder that I showed, the first rung over there, is a demigod worshipper.
Okay, okay. Got it, Prabhuji.
Right. Okay. So section 3, last section, the qualities that endear one to Krishna. So Krishna divides these qualities into broadly into 3 categories. The qualities for the self, the person. If such a person is pure, doesn't commit sinful activities. Person is expert, focused, self-controlled. Then he has this freedom from running after the senses. So all this freedom from proprietorship, false ego, sense of I'm not the body. Then qualities that are in relationship to others. So person is satisfied, tolerant, and neutral. He neither laments or desires, transcendental to auspicious and auspicious acts, equipoised in dualities, materially indifferent. So they are in relationship to others because these situations are created by others. That because of the whether it is another person or a demigod or a natural occurrence, but these are situations that are created by around a person. And so if there is extensive heat, the person is tolerant. Or if something is happening good, the person is neutral. He does not rejoice because of the good, does not become distressed because of the others. So you'll all notice that this is nothing new. Krishna is essentially summarizing the qualities that he had already spoken about. In second chapter, Sthita Pragya, he spoke about all these qualities. Fourth chapter, he talked about the qualities. Seventh chapter. So he is simply summarizing them over here. And then these are the most important qualities that he says that these are the qualities that Krishna says are really dear to me. That one who is engaged in devotional service. One is determined. Vyavasatmika buddhi, eka kurunamika. So determined doesn't really in this mean material determination, but the person is determined to follow through the path of bhakti. Mind and intelligence fixed entirely on bhakti. And then all these qualities, they develop naturally in a devotee. So when Krishna gives the list of all these qualities, it's a little intimidating. That I have to be pure and expert and self-controlled and tolerant and equipoised and always determined. But the point that Krishna makes in the last verse of the 12th chapter is that all these qualities through the process of bhakti automatically manifest. And Prabhupada would use this analogy of a 100 rupee note containing all the smaller denomination notes. So bhakti contains everything with it. So the qualities of the self are those that are conducive to piety. The qualities for others are conducive to Paramatma realization. Self is also conducive to Brahma realization. I'm not the body, I'm the soul. And qualities for Krishna is for bhakti. But if you were to remove the first two stickies of qualities for the self and others and simply focus in bhakti, just engage in devotional service with determination, with your mind and intelligence fixed on Krishna, all the other qualities will automatically manifest. And the biggest quality that manifests is that such a person becomes dear. So for when Krishna is glorifying these qualities, he says a person who is satisfied, tolerant, and neutral is very dear to me. A person who's self-controlled is very dear to me. So he keeps saying person is very dear to me. But then when he talks about a devotee, he says the person is very, very dear to me. So he uses the ati superlative, that all this person are dear to me. Why? Because they're in their own way trying to come to me. So they're dear to me. But a person who follows the process of bhakti is very, very dear to me. So this is the third part of the third section of the chapter. So summarizing, that Arjun requests Krishna to clarify that who is superior, impersonalists or devotees. Krishna states that the devotees are dear to him because the path of impersonalism is long, difficult, and uncertain. Krishna then talks about the yoga ladder, and this is going from top to the bottom. The top rung is Shuddha Bhakti, then Sadhana Bhakti, then Karma Yoga. The top three rungs are essentially in the category of bhakti. And then we have Astang Yoga, Brahma Yagya, Brahma Gyan, and Nishkam Karma. And the lower part of Nishkam Karma is Sakam Karma or Karma Karma. He then talks about the qualities that are dear to him. And then he says the quality of devotion is most dear to him since all other qualities manifest from this. Okay. So the verse to memorize is actually the last verse of the 12th chapter. Yetu dharmamritam midam yatoktam paryupasate shraddhadan matparama bhaktaste tivami priya. Those who follow this imperishable path of devotional service and who completely engage themselves with faith, making me the supreme goal, are very, very dear to me. So he says, Bhaktaste ativa me priya. So ativa is the superlative that very, very dear to me. So Krishna is going out of his way to reassure the devotees. So three sections is bhakti, the progression of bhakti, and the qualities. Why does Arjun request clarification? Because as a devotee, he was attached to the personal form. He had seen the impersonal forms of Krishna. He wanted clarity. What are the bottom three rungs? We have Nishkamkar, Brahmagyan, and Astang. What are the next three rungs of the yoga ladder? Karma Yoga, Sadhana, and Shuddha Bhakti. And why does Krishna recommend bhakti? It's direct, easy, safe, and pleasing to him, so he helps. What quality does Krishna appreciate the most? Being fixed in devotion to him. Okay, so this is the end of the 12th chapter. It's also the end of the second section of the Bhagavad Gita. The third section is Gyan Kand, which we will start next week. So I can pause for a few minutes and see if there is any questions or comments. Yes, Prabhu, go ahead.
Prabhuji, very, very nice explanation, Prabhuji. This chapter itself is so sweet. But I recently faced a practical situation, Prabhuji. Like somebody, elderly lady I was speaking, and she was saying that what simply saying Krishna, Krishna, does it, have any, good qualities? वो अंदर होना है, just by chanting, it doesn't come like that. When she said in a, challenging tone, like I don't know how to convince, and I kind of stumbled, but I said that it helps, and I stopped that discussion. But how do we handle, because that is experientially, I know that like how Krishna's name can purifies us. But
how do we handle that situation, and how should we answer also? Because I felt bad for keeping myself silent, but because she is elderly and lady, so I was silent. How do we handle such situation?
So a lot of what, and this is true for spirituality as a whole, and for bhakti more specifically, that a lot of what is communicated on a platform of faith. And somebody is challenging, there's nothing you can do, right? So I mean, she's challenging that what happens with Krishna, you have to have good qualities. Another person might say that, what is this Krishna? I don't believe in Krishna. But there's no Krishna. So what can you do? You can't show the person. So you can say Krishna is in the Vedas, and he says, what Vedas? I don't believe in Vedas. So at the end of the day, there's nothing you can do. Sharing spiritual truths, tattvas, is a two-way street. It's something that a person should be open to receive, and then also you give it to according to the level that the person is ready to receive it. Prabhupada didn't preach Shuddha Bhakti to everybody. To somebody he said, don't eat meat. He would say that, just that, don't eat meat. Don't do outrightly sinful activities, or don't do illicit sex. And some person he would say that you should chant, and that's the perfection of life. So it's not necessary that that you will be able to or obligated to support or defeat or convince everybody. Everyone has their own path. Everybody is walking their own paths of realization. The person is challenging. The best thing is to be quiet, because the more you say, the more person will become disrespectful of you and Krishna, and more offenses the person will commit. Because of the offenses, the heart will become hard. So best thing is to keep a distance from such person. However, if the person is interested, the person is asking that the same question is asked in a different way, that how can you say that all good qualities come from bhakti? Then you can demonstrate. You can say that we have so many instances in the scriptures where the devotees have such good qualities that they even attract their enemies. Haridas Thakur, he had such good qualities, and so many other cases in the scriptures. Prahlad Maharaj was the son of the biggest tormentors of the demigods, yet they had so much affection for him. And you yourself also become an example of that. That when you start demonstrating good qualities, then the question will be framed differently. That why is it that you're always smiling? Why is it that you don't get perturbed? Why is it that you don't indulge in this rat race? And their heart is already open. Then you can say, yes, it's because I'm following the process of bhakti. Is it okay, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji. It very helpful, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we have our kirtaniers ready for the nursing day prayer.